Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Incite webinar, 2020 Marketing, How Will Your Brand Cut Through the Digital Noise? My name is Jasmine Keys, and I've recently taken over as the lead organizer for the marketing chapter of the Incite Group. So I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce myself properly. It's so exciting to have such a passionate group of marketing leaders joining the webinar today. And a special shout out to those of you who have registered for the Incite Marketing Summit already. There's been so much sharing on social media and with peers. So thank you for helping us and helping me to build this community. Today, we are discussing the saturated state of the digital marketing channels. How can we ensure our brands stand out in 2020? So what's happening in what's happened in 2019? What have our panel got planned for the year ahead? And how can you take their advice and incorporate it into your 2020 strategy? To set the scene for the webinar and start the discussion, we're opening a question to the audience via a poll. You'll see this pop up on your screen now. So what is, just got to pause that poll for a minute. We'll get another one up in a moment. But to get us started and to welcome everyone to the webinar, we have five representatives of the Incite Marketing Summit. These leaders will all be sharing their insight at the 2020 meeting on May 14th and 15th at the gorgeous Hilton San Diego Resort and Spa. Please welcome your panel, Katie Berry, Social Media Strategy Lead for US Bank, Carol Tran, Head of Growth, Dolby, and Hai Habit, Senior Director, Incubation and Growth, StubHub. And of course, Carola Jane, Chief Marketing Officer for Spartan. Unfortunately, Jaron Beckhermer, our Chief Marketing Officer for Q Mixers, will not be able to join us as his wife has just had a baby. So congrats, Jaron. We've also just sent over a link to check out the Incite Marketing Summit website. Now, before we start this discussion, I'd like you to keep in mind that questions will be taken throughout. So please ask questions and I will try to deliver as many as possible to the speakers throughout the webinar and then some at the end. And now to kick us off, Katie, in such a saturated and volatile social environment, how is US Bank cutting through the digital noise and sharing their positive brand story?
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, thank you for that question. I think one of the things that we've really pivoted to in later 2019 and especially for 2020 is in the social media sphere, we want to focus on platforms that drive joy. We're looking for those spots that won't be as politically focused by putting more dollars into Pinterest, Instagram, and Snapchat, where election tensions and emotions are less present. We know that 2020 in the United States is going to be very contentious, and we know that those fights between people and between politicians will play out on Twitter and Facebook. So for example, in Q4 and Q3 of 2019, we started putting more dollars into Pinterest and Instagram stories and have been really pleased with the results. For the first time, we started retargeting people who have engaged with previous pins. And this campaign was able to earn 13% more engagements than our previous brand campaign Pinterest efforts, while spending 46% less. Our engagement rate was also twice as high compared to our previous efforts, while our cost per engagement was 54% lower. Overall, we're finding that ads and content running on Instagram and Pinterest have higher engagement, and we don't see the negative engagement and comments that we've seen on Facebook and Twitter that has led us to turn off ads due to negativity. The second thing that we're looking to do in 2020 is really focus on developing branded content partnerships so that other publications can help tell our brand story and add credibility. Not everyone is just dying to hear from their bank, whether that be through online or through social media, but having partners such as Forbes, Fortune, Entrepreneur Magazine, People Magazine, Parents, Real Simple, and the New York Times has the added bonus of reaching people where they're already visiting places on a daily basis. So people aren't necessarily looking to hear from us, but they are looking to hear from those trusted partners. Within these partners, we've been able to give our brand outside credibility as they shared our messages around money management, community impact, and our security efforts to keep our customers' data and money safe. We're looking to expand these efforts in 2020, especially in the small business and wealth management space. We've also piloted several podcast partnerships that we're looking to renew next year, and we'll develop several new podcast partners. So, for example, one of those would be the daily podcast on the New York Times, where they already have a built-in audience that we can reach without needing to create a podcast of our own. I will also share more specific examples of what we did with other individual partners in the Q&A.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Katie. It's really interesting to hear about how partnerships and influencers have come in over the last few years and really changed the way we see social and the way we see and the way we can connect with our customers in a more kind of trustworthy way. So does anyone else in the panel have any comments on the social platform and influencers and the volatile state of the social environment?
Maybe I just jump in here. It's Carola Jane from Spartan. So what Katie was just saying in terms of branded content partnerships, they're definitely huge for us as a platform. I love the notion of a platform of joy. So Spartan really enables people to have this transformational journey, and a lot of brands are coming to us to really partner with us to tell individual stories. And I think we would concur that we're also seeing, on the social platforms, people want to hear from people versus from brands, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later. But the branded content partnerships for us are really a key vehicle for other brands to communicate their stories. And just to give an example, one of our very large global partners is Rakuten. And Rakuten actually stands for optimism. The name Rakuten means optimism. And as we want to display how customers can really become more optimistic and sort of change their trajectory, we're leveraging stories of Spartans. So Rakuten has taken 8 global people from all over the world. They've flown them to Japan. They've climbed Mount Fuji, and these 8 people have really turned their life around. We have created that content with Rakuten, and so far, I think for only the first series of this content show, they've gotten over 3 million views already, and it's really working well because it's a story about people. Similarly, we're partnering with Harley Davidson, and Harley also is creating a content series with us. So oftentimes, finding very positive moments of joy of our customers that are tangentially kind of related to what we do, and obviously the Spartan journey is a great opportunity for brands to really tell a bigger story and get bigger engagement across the social media platforms.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Carola. And I am looking forward to hear more about that, the concept of people wanting to talk to people, not to brands. And I just wanted to bring up the poll results. So just so that our panelists and everyone in the audience can get an understanding of who's listening in today. We're very close to having 1,000 people online. We had about 992 people sign up for the webinar. So it was great to have you all here. And it looks like the majority of people in the audience are either looking at growth marketing or at compelling content. We've heard a little bit about influencers and social and brand story, and I know that we're going to be hearing a little bit more about personalization and data, but growth marketing with Hai and Carol is going to be fantastic. And to kick that off, so Carol, we were talking before the webinar, you've just moved into a very strategic position as head of growth for Dolby, and it's been a big 3 months. So Carol, can you share a few points on how you are changing the way Dolby look at marketing and growth? And of course, some of the strategies that you are using to transform Dolby into even more of a household name.
Absolutely. Good morning to everybody, and thank you for having us share our thoughts here. And, I just joined Dolby about 3 months ago, but we're making a lot of changes and movement. We have just launched our developer platform. Adobe, as everyone's known, has been a legacy brand that's been around for 50 years or more, and it's always been licensed out. Majority of our business, you can see Adobe Cinema, Adobe Atmos, the music. You know that we are strong in that brand, but you don't hear about the other things that we're providing. So we want to give that access to business owners, entrepreneurs, startups, small, medium-sized business. All our products can be purchased by larger enterprise companies. And now we're providing APIs and SDKs in a UX kit, literally open out the box, and you can get the same access as you would see from Samsung, who has embedded Dolby Vision in their TVs, and multiple products that you've seen when you go to the movie theaters. And so by looking at innovating, we are seeing how we can scale this in a different way. And I have worked with all the executive leaders and the people at Adobe, and they are ready to take the next big leap. And for a company that's been around for so long, it's fantastic to see how they're open to approaching marketing and growth in a different way. But because with my background, I'm an entrepreneur. I started businesses, and prior to joining here, I was having my own company. And so I approach this business division right now, which is very new to Adobe, the developer and product leaders. That's the two main customers we're looking at. We're B2B, which is different than all the panelists who are here are mostly focused on B2C. So I look at data and personalization. We have historical and real-time data based on what we've been doing successfully. And now I'm applying that to how we can access that, to give that access to developers and product leaders who are creating these amazing businesses. How can we enable them to understand more about their customers, utilizing something that they didn't think they can access, the beautiful magic that Adobe provides for vision, the audio, and then what are the analytics platforms they can look at that, the sessions, the type of individuals that are leveraging our products so that they can do what they do best. So we span across all different industries, from healthcare, and you wouldn't think Adobe would be in there, education, all the way to retail, and if you name up to finance. We can go in different industries, and Adobe is always in that area to support that business unit. So I would go through every impact of the business and see how we can touch point that and make it more personalized, and so segment the customers and even more of the journey of how they get to where they are. And then because of my background of being an entrepreneur, I look at it and how to streamline our product so that we can build a huge customer base with very limited resources. I still have that scrappy mentality, even though if you're in a larger corporation, how can we innovate really quickly and move along without impacting what is already set in stone in a large corporation, like Adobe, who's been around for many years. So I can go into more detail about microsegmentation and further details about all the growth hacking strategies and tips that I apply, especially for those who are in a corporation that needs several layers of approval. How do we be more agile? How are we able to move quicker and make decisions and be able to leverage that startup mentality and be able to innovate in a large company like that? So I'm able to expand that further in any Q&A.
Fantastic. Are there any questions from the audience for Carol at the moment? Alternatively, I know that Carola, again, had a few comments to make on some of what Carol was saying. Carola, would you like to jump in and share your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree in the micro segmentation, and what we're seeing, again, this is a B2C set, but the more we really engage in micro segment and then have very specific touch points and a very different communication strategy, the more our customers engage. And I also believe in what you were saying in terms of growth hacking. Maybe we're not as technologically savvy here, but we try to really give our community tools to become spokespeople and also to become our extended marketing arm. So how can we really look at our own communities and try to make all the tools that we have for marketing available to our community and our people based on the segment that they're in. So when I look at Spartan, we are in 48 different countries, 250 events, 1.3 million people participate in our events. There's a massive community that we have that can go out and convince a friend or bring some of their co-workers to our races and to our activities. So what we'll be working on, or what I'll really want to focus on for 2020 is how do I provide every one of my customers, every one of my advocates with very personalized toolkits that they can go out, and then how do I reward them, both from a social media perspective. We know that a lot of our participants love being featured and getting shout outs, but also potentially from a monetary perspective. How do we reward people for being our extended marketing and sales arm and bringing their friends in, and not necessarily, as I said, only monetarily, but also what are the ways to provide merchandise or other perks to our community.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Carola, I think it's incredible that you are focusing on your community and seeing what they enjoy, and by rewarding them by doing that. I think what, first of all, prior to me being into B2B right now, I was in B2C. So being able to understand what the types of rewards to give them is basically the customer market segmentation, understanding how to recalculate the segmentation of every customer and tracking how customers move from one micro segment to another over time. For the audience, just to define this, my customer micro segmentation is the practice of dividing a company's customers into groups relevant to a particular business. And in this case, Spartan, Run is talking about how to reward the customers based on their in their business unit. It's about, competition and how they refer to individuals to partake into, the activities that Spartan Race is doing. And so by doing this, you have to focus on the goal of segmenting customers to decide how to relate to the customers in each segment in order to maximize the value of each customer. So I would look at it in the initial life stage cycle, and then do a layer segmentation. I would place customers into one or more relevant clusters within each segmentation layer, and each customer will then be associated with a string of different clusters, and those customers with the same pattern of associations are then grouped together as a microsegment. So by looking at a high-level segmentations of customers in distinct life cycle stages, we can give it in, like, let's say we have 6 life cycle stages. Somebody who's fun, wanted to do this as a fun thing with Spartan Race. They're just new into, getting into fitness, or they're very active. And you want to look at who the churn and re-engagement. So after completing this initial life cycle stage in layer segmentation, I would place the customers into one or more relevant clusters within these layers, and then group them in a way that, one of the customer segmentation would actually see how they would respond. And then from there, I would do a bandit testing, which is constant, testing to see what works and what doesn't. And then I provide more rewards for those who are actually the highest levels referrers, the ones who are actually obtaining more rewards, because they are the actual marketing soldiers. And for there, you can actually have them be able to group into their own communities and create more rewards by creating a chain, a reaction. That's more of a high level. I would actually go in deeper and more strategic, specifically to Spartan Race. What Carola has already expressed on, how can we reward more? That's more actually diving deeper and seeing what they are. This is what I'm just saying is the process that I would go into, and this could be applied to also B2B as well. I know there's a lot of terminology here, clusters and segmentation and all that, but basically, if you really follow the journey of the customer and highlighting those who actually has been the most responsive, then you can get feedback from them, and they are actually the one leading their own community, and then you can actually see which rewards that would work the best, because there's always the leaders amongst that community who actually create more of a following and then create further more of that journey on how to reward other individuals.
Great, Carol. I would love to talk more to you about this and have you come and visit our office anytime. I think what you just outlined is exactly what we're looking to do. So appreciate all the advice.
I would love to.
And I believe, sorry guys, I believe that this is what you're going to be speaking about at the Incite Marketing Summit in May next year, isn't it, Carol?
That is correct. Yes, and I'm probably going to elaborate further on growth hacking strategies. People are always interested in saying now you're in a larger company, you have all this budget, but I think we can do a lot if we just do a lot of testing. And I understand Hai is going to get into more detail on that part, but how can we leverage on being scrappy at the same time getting all this data without getting all those fancy software? What can you do? And at a short amount of time. Yes.
And that is a great segue into a few thoughts from Hai. You lead incubation and growth for StubHub. It's such an exciting company. But rather than talking about the idea of hacking, you're going to be sharing on how any business can infuse a growth mindset and methodology into their 2020 strategy. Really looking forward to what you have to say on this. So I'll let you go into it. Hai.
No, absolutely, and thanks again. I really love the panel because we get to hear from so many great professionals that bring a different angle. So kind of going back to one of the things Carola mentioned, I do come from the tech angle. So anything that we do is always all about customers and how can we apply technology into improving their lives. And when Jasmine first reached out to me and suggested that I would join and participate in this panel, I was thinking about it. I said, you know what, we're going to have a lot of folks in the audience. Some of them are B2B, some of them are B2C marketers, and it is the end of the year, so probably everyone kind of has their plan for next year, maybe even the budget. So I figured instead of talking about the tactical stuff, maybe I can talk a little bit about strategy and how we're thinking about growth as leaders, and maybe help folks, apply a fresh filter to the same stuff that they're already doing. So going back to those areas and those topics, to me, a lot of it is the mindset, right? How do we approach growth? How do we think about growth? And I want to talk about two things. One of them is thinking about our bets, thinking about everything that we do in a portfolio. In other words, it's kind of like us going to our banker and talking to our banker about, okay, here's how much money we got, and here's how we're gonna split that investment. We're gonna put some of that money on certain types of initiatives or bets that are gonna have maybe low risk but also low returns, and then some of it on medium risk, medium returns, and some of it on high risk but potentially really great massive returns. And a lot of companies actually do not apply that mindset. And when I think about growth, I actually think about growth in three different buckets. The first bucket is what we call the optimization bucket. That's where that's the bread and butter of our business, right? That's where we're running campaigns. That's where we're optimizing them, basically going after the same audiences with the same portfolio of products and offers. And everyone has to do it, but the key is do not spend 100 or 95 or 90% of your time doing just that. The key is to identify and realize that some of those initiatives, even if we're super successful, are actually only going to drive incremental growth. So we should also think about other types of initiatives. And the second bucket is expansion. And I really love expansion. I actually spend most of my time on expansion type of growth initiatives. And you can either expand your audience, start going after adjacent audiences, or you could expand your portfolio of offers, whereby I've been think of Uber, right? Uber added Uber Eats to their core product of Uber. That's a classic case of expansion. And then we got the last bucket. The last bucket is what we call speculative, where we're making huge bets. We're going after completely different audiences with completely different offers, and we're catering to a different value proposition. So I think the key for us as growth leaders is to identify all of those different types of the initiatives and think about it in advance. Create some buffers in our budget, so that we can actually go out and try other things. Yeah, 60-70% of our budget should go to that basic core where we're optimizing everything that we're doing, and we're trying to get that incremental growth. But at least 30% of what we're doing, both from a resource standpoint and also from a mindset standpoint, needs to go into those expansion initiatives. So I challenge all of you guys to actually spend some time with your teams and thinking about stuff that you could do within those 3 buckets, and then make sure that you do have enough resources, and then you go out and you execute. And the key in the execution is to actually fail fast, is to identify what it is that we could do to validate some of our assumptions and hypotheses, and then fail fast if it doesn't work. But if it does work, double down on it real quickly and learn from that experience. So that's kind of a growth mindset that I apply every day, and I think a lot of us could. And the other thing that I quickly wanted to touch on is a little bit about the methodology, right? And we're big believers in always starting with the customers and spending a lot of time with the customers. And for us, it's really about that interesting equation. I call it customer problem solution value. So you always start with the customers. You ask yourself, who are my customers? And there's actually a super interesting question there that a lot of marketers don't think about. But that question is, where do they hang out? Where do they go online? Where do they spend time on other apps, on other services, on other products? And this is true for both B2B and B2C, obviously, customers. Then you want to look at their challenges. And those are the types of things that you will not know just looking at the quantitative data. That's where you have to spend some time talking to them, getting to know them a little bit better, running persona analysis. You actually want to talk to 3 different types of customers. You want to talk to your customers. You want to talk to customers who were never your customers. And you want to talk to people who were your customers but are now using other services. And you're going to learn a lot of different things from each and every one of those types. But once you are able to conclude such an analysis, and it could take you anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks or 2 months, depending on your budget and depending on your timelines, but anything that you would do is going to be helpful. You're going to learn a lot. But once you conclude that, it will help you understand your customers and their journey and identify specific areas within the journey where there are opportunities to tap. Those could be opportunities to create strategic partnerships. A couple of years ago, I was running the same type of effort for the world's biggest retailer, and we ended up creating a really cool partnership with the world's biggest ride-sharing company. And that helped us, significantly reduce cost of acquisition, tap into a very different audience, and move much faster because we realized that our customers actually hang out there. And the other thing that you could do is obviously meet your customers in different parts of their customer journey. Meet them earlier in the journey, meet them in other places. So just wanted to kind of quickly highlight those 2 mindset approaches or hacks or ways to kind of think about growth, and happy to answer any specific questions later on.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And that actually kind of answers one of the questions that we had earlier from Darren Evans. He was asking about the top tip for a small startup business with little capital for marketing initiatives. Hi, is there, and Carol as well, is there anything that you would add to answer that question? A top tip for a small startup business with little capital for marketing initiatives, or even, and that can even relate back to a bigger business that just doesn't have that much capital for marketing on a new channel of sorts. What can they do to still reach their customers on that channel?
So I'll answer real quick, and Carol, I'll hand it over to you. But to me, it goes back into understanding the customers and answering that question: where do they hang out? And then based on that, meeting them earlier and in other places. So again, if I'm a small early stage startup, and I've been in those shoes, I started a bunch of companies and I joined a bunch of early stage companies, and had 5 different exits. So I've seen the entire journey. So when I was wearing those shoes, it was all about, again, trying to tap those customers. So someone had already paid the CAC, the cost of acquisition, to acquire those customers. I don't want to pay the same amount. I just want to go and tap that other partner who had already paid. Now, I want to give that partner something that would make sense for them, but then I get access to their customers. So a great way of doing it is, doing a joint email marketing campaign, doing push notification campaigns, if they're on mobile. Having my app or my widget embedded in someone else's widget or apps. I've done a lot of that, and cost of acquisition is very low. You get great cohorts of users, and you're able to significantly grow and expand that way. Carol, over to you.
Okay, thanks. That's what Hai just said is nailed it on the dot right there. But what I can also expand on is that I do come from an entrepreneur background. I started my own businesses. It was all like profitable and profitable since day one. And I'm saying that because I had a job and I started it with not thinking like I'm going to put all this money in and that's it. So remind yourself why you started the business, right? You should be the #1 customer. That's first of all, reminding you that's you. Okay. Who are the other people who have the same pain? Obviously, if you have customers already and you want to expand further, what have you learned from them? That's where all the data is very important. But at the same time, like I can't speak on just generalization, right? Are you B2B, B2C? What industry are you in, right? Once you look at that, what do they respond well? Because some places like, Instagram isn't the right place, right? If you're looking at social media, it could work if you're more a thought leader. If that's your space, you should talk more on Twitter. Now, I think what Hai mentioned is about, leveraging partnerships, leveraging the fact that having a widget and all that is important. But when I started, I think when I wanted to get B2C, more mass, contact with individuals, is really looking at those who are your big believers, right? They are your #1 customers. They're paying you, and #2, they're your marketing soldiers. That's free marketing for there. They go out and tell other individuals. Tap into those individuals and say, we're providing this to you, like give them the services, that you're already giving, but a little bit white glove, right? White glove services, or even a little bit more premium service to them. They're going to go out there proudly talking about you, even though you're not telling them, you're not hiring them to be a marketer, but they're going to tell a massive amount of individuals, and it just trickles out from there. Right? And then, so these are your marketing soldiers, and it creates a marketing community. So first of all, show why you care about it. Create a community of those individuals, whether you're B2B or B2C. You can create this community, discuss with them in that community, what do they want to build out? What is their pain, right? You can further work with those individuals, and that can become your marketing in itself, because by the time you generate all that, care and response, the customer service that you give to them, that's memorable. Remember, people don't buy from companies, they buy from people. So if you are the founder or you are part of that company, you believe in what you're doing because you joined that company, make sure you give that special touch that you want from another company, especially if that's your passion. Share it, show it to them, because that in itself, you don't need money. That is basically your passion trickling out to others, and people will feel it. That's my advice when you want to start out and you don't have that much budget.
And that's exactly what Carola was saying before. People want to hear from people, not brands. So let's look at one of the summit's biggest themes of the year, which is, can marketing be authentic? Carola, how are you reaching your customers and growing the Spartan community in an authentic way?
Yeah, I think one of the things that and it actually is exactly this point, one of the things that we found out over the past really quarter is that our CEO and founder, Joe DeSena, is really passionate about the brand. He wants to get 100 million people off the couch and healthy. And as he was dabbling on social media, we saw that every time he would post something, even at the time he had a small following, his handle is Real Joe DeSena. Now he has, many more followers on Instagram, and his engagement is really, really high. And I think it's exactly what you were just saying. When the message is authentic, when it's delivered from a person, and I actually truly believe it also applies on the B2B side. If you add value to the customer, what they're thinking about, what their pain points are, then there's a real connection. And I think we're trying to leverage as much user-generated content, because that's the content that effectively our community has created. We're leveraging our CEO as much as possible as an influencer. And that means that there's some limited control. You cannot control everything that your community or sometimes even the founder says, but that then provides that authenticity. And I think it shows that there is a one-on-one relationship between the brand or the person on behalf of the brand and the community, and there isn't necessarily always a very strong corporate filter, which I think makes people more engaged and more excited about the content that we're publishing. So in our community, we really treat everyone as an influencer. Those are the influencers that we want to have a voice on our platform, and we're hoping to become less reliant on really traditional digital marketing and move more to a sort of influencer community cohort marketing approach. In addition to that, and I think it goes very well hand in hand, we're looking at national and global advertisement and marketing, as well as really local and interest-specific messaging and marketing. And I really feel that, you know, in a world where every piece of information is always at your fingertips, it's very important to be very relevant to the local differences. As I said before, we're in 48 different countries. You know, the way our activities and our events are perceived in different countries, the local kind of specificities are very different, and we need to leave enough room for those local differences and really cater towards a local taste. So we're driving a 2 or 3 pronged strategy where we have corporate messaging, broad messaging, big storytelling, but then we very much leave room for all the local specificities. And then on the last point here, in terms of leading with content, what we found to be extremely helpful, we cannot always push our products, we cannot lead with a sales message, we really need to lead with content, and we need to lead with value add. And so again, we have surveyed our customers. I try to call a customer a day to really understand, you know, not just the customers that are thrilled, also the customers that potentially have complaints, really understand where do they spend their time, what are they looking for, what are they looking for from us, what are they looking for from wellness companies, and then we try to identify what is that unique content that they feel they can only get from us, to really have a relationship that's 365 days, where the customer comes to us, looks for us to us for advice, and then on the back end of that, hopefully there's a strong enough relationship, they get engaged with our community, and through that they want to partake in our community and buy a ticket or participate in a race. So from that perspective, I think we lead with a lot of things that are not necessarily core to our daily revenue generating business, but ultimately that creates a very large community of customers or potential customers. And again, that cohort then sort of triggers towards purchase and drives marketing and drives sales for us. So, you know, just to summarize it, like leading with people, not brands, has been an immense opportunity. And I look forward in the conference in May to show a lot of examples on what we have done and how we've really turned Joe into our own internal influencer, and then how we're having local run alongside global. I think that's very important. And then, you know, our online education platform that we're about to launch, I hope I have a lot of examples there, how we're leveraging content, again, created by our community, created by experts in our community, but provide value to our customers, and then through that, hopefully entice them enough to leverage our platform and our race to bring in their friends, build teams, bring their corporations, and monetize them that way.
Brilliant. And I think we're all looking forward to hearing about that at the Incite Marketing Summit. Thank you for sharing. And we actually have a question here that's come through from Debbie. Now, how do you measure your influencers if everyone is an influencer? Especially if you are justifying the cost to manage a community, what is the value of the community? So this is really around ROI. And Katie as well, if you want to jump in on this too after Carola, what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so we don't pay our influencers. So I'm not going after the very, very big influencers that require, you know, a lot of money to basically post. And again, that goes back to our authenticity. Right now, we have a solely non-paid approach where we will offer people to participate. You know, I don't think we would want to have an influencer just post about us if they don't actually know our product or participate in our product. So we invite people to our venues. We invite people to participate. We invite companies to come and bring their broader teams and race together. And through that experience, we then try to document that experience or have the influencer document that experience. And then we basically calculate the ROI in numbers of people that have seen the content, eyeballs reached, but also some of our internal influencers will get an affiliate code and a link share, and we work with Rakuten on that, where we can then monetize, or they monetize how many people they brought in, and we basically reward them for that. So we're looking to roll that out much more, but at the very high level, content and user-generated content generation, we really just look to, who are the people that have influence in their communities? How do we bring them in? How do we have them share their really positive experience? And then if they want to act more like an affiliate, we can then reward them for the number of people that they bring in. And we have people that bring in up to 800 people, one person in the UK, that we just recently became aware of. So there are people that spread the word and become really evangelists of the brand, and we want to reward those with a more traditional affiliate relationship.
And I will speak, this is Katie, I will speak about how we measure our employee ambassadorship. So one of the programs that we have at US Bank is LinkedIn Elevate. And through LinkedIn Elevate, employees can share news about the company on their LinkedIn, their Twitter, their Facebook personal pages. They can share news about the company, industry news, and just general professional news. Articles such as growing your career, articles around work-life balance, articles around negotiation or how to have difficult conversations with your boss or with your direct reports. And what this program does is it allows employee ambassadors to increase awareness of US Bank. And as we've seen, and what Carola said, is that people are more receptive to hearing from their peers and friends than brands on social media. So through the LinkedIn Elevate platform, we've been able to measure the direct impact of how many clicks have we driven, how many engagements, how many more people have we reached, because we have employees telling our story as opposed to the brand telling our story.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Katie. And thank you to everyone for sharing your thoughts. I'd like to take a few more questions. We've got a few minutes left, but while we wait, I'd like to add our final tip for 2020, and that is to get out there and network with other marketers. We may all be competing brands, but we are all up against heightened customer expectations, and we're all trying to cut through the digital noise. So if we don't all improve the way we connect with our customers, their distrust in adverts will continue to grow, and it'll just be harder for us to connect. So we have to work together, both as a community and internally by collaborating as a department. There are so many opportunities to do so. But if you would like to hear more from these marketing leaders and another 50-ish CMOs and marketing experts, you can join us at the Incite Marketing Summit on May 14th and 15th at the San Diego Spa and Resort. And if you are able to register before the end of the week, we do have our pre-launch discounts, which will give you a $400 saving if you can book before the Thanksgiving break. So taking just some final questions now. Kathleen, what do you base your content around that keeps your audience coming back to your social media channels? And what platforms do you see is most successful for a financial institution?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Katie there.
So we have a number of different content pillars, but one of our big content pillars is financial education. So what we've seen is with Pinterest, we can pin financial listicles, imagery, so for example, 3 tips to raise your credit score. And then within that, when people click from the pin to our articles, we drive people to a website called Financial IQ. And there they can do a deep dive into more tips about raising their credit or why it's important to raise your credit. Or, for example, Pinterest is all about life moments. So someone getting married, someone moving, someone potentially having a baby. And so there's articles about those different topics and how that relates to personal finance. We also find that on LinkedIn, that's where industry news does really well, right? So we have, for example, wealth management experts at US Bank that will write about the economy, about the markets, where trends are going, and that stuff does really well in that professional environment. So those are 2 that perform really well for us. And then we have feel-good content such as an impact in the community. For example, we gave 4 different homes to veterans across the United States for Veterans Day, and that content performed well across all of our platforms. So I think, as I said at the top of the hour, just those moments of joy, people are really looking for that on social media, both from their friends as well as from brands. So the more you can deliver on that content really works across all social media platforms.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Katie. And it looks like that's about all we have time for. So thank you so much to our panelists. What fantastic insights. And also to our audience for joining the webinar and actually asking questions and getting involved. That's so important. I hope you can join us at the Incite Marketing Summit on May 14th and 15th in San Diego. My name is Jasmine Keys, and if you have any questions about the summit or would like to see how you can get involved, please send me an email on jasminekeys@insightegroup.com or ping me a message on LinkedIn. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.